On this episode, we're going to talk briefly about transaction fees and my thoughts around them. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Today's episode is sponsored by Jane, a clinic management software and EMR that helps you handle your clinic's admin tasks so that you can free up your evenings and weekends. The Jane team understands how precious your time is and recognizes that charting can often be the most time-consuming, absolutely, admin task for practitioners. 1000%. That's why they're here to help. To start your chart notes from scratch, you can check out Jane's template library, which is amazing. It gives you access to templates that have been generously created and shared by health and wellness practitioners in the community. Once you have a template that you like, you can choose to customize it further with charting tools such as range scales, text fields, checkboxes, and more. To see how Jane can help you spend more time doing what you love, just make sure you click the link in my bio to book a personalized demo. I say bio and you know I mean show notes. Or if you're ready to get started, you can use my code LEX1MO at the time of sign up for a 1-month grace period applied to your new Jane account. Again, I'm going to put the link in the show notes, as well as you can use my code LEX1MO at checkout to get a 1-month grace period for your new Jane account. Welcome back to another episode of Up in My Business. I am super excited to record this one for you today. We're going to talk briefly about transaction fees. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably already heard this, but also it's nice to hear my voice on the podcast if you listen. And as always, going to give life and business updates for you in the beginning. So let's jump right in. Life updates, nothing huge. Like, I will be honest with you, it's always great when I can say like, no news is good news, I guess. I will say I'm struggling with a little bit of like, my body is tired and I'm trying to figure out why. So we're going to try to improve my recovery strategies. And Shantae is really, she really wants me to start stretching more. So I'm going to do that because I don't really warm up. I know I sound ridiculous, but I don't really warm up. I'm at the age where I should probably consider doing that. And I also don't really recover a ton. So going to try to add that a little bit, but just saying, like, my legs just feel heavy. Like, I actually only played one game today after volleyball. Usually it's like 4 to 5, maybe even more, and did not opt to do that today because I was so tired. So trying to figure a little bit of that stuff out. And then Shantae and I also celebrated our 1-year anniversary officially last week. That was great. We had an amazing dinner at our place, not our place that we go to date night, but our steakhouse place, because we're both suckers for like a good meal out, and those two places are our go-tos. So we had dinner there and celebrated our 1 year. And then Shantae's brother is visiting us this upcoming week. So we'll get to see him for I think he's here for almost a week and a half. So that'll be great. And Moose is healing. So Moose ended up having an ear infection. We have to put stuff inside of her ear. It's the first like true ear infection she's had. So the vet that we had this time was amazing. So I'm definitely going to be requesting her every single time from here on out. But she was great, and I have no complaints about the process that I had previously voiced on the podcast, but very much so happy with that whole shebang, and hopefully Moose is on the mend. We'll see. We'll see. She has just been like, she is the easiest dog and the best behaved dog, but the past like month, it's just been like a lot of medical stuff. So crossing my fingers for that. Also shout out to Pets Best Pet Insurance, because I definitely am the person who has pet insurance and they are great. So I submitted my claim, got some money back, because if you ever have been to the vet, people are like, grocery shopping is really expensive. Yes, it is. And so isn't the freaking vet. You walk into the vet, you breathe in their waiting room, and it's $500. So anyway, definitely an expensive vet visit, but Pets Best Insurance was really good. So definitely love that company. I've had nothing but good stuff with them. Other than that, I feel like there are no huge life updates. Business updates we have last week was really, really good for me. I was able to spend some time updating my service brochure, which I'll link in the show notes for you if you have not downloaded it. I did update a lot of things on there, and I was able to update my website a ton. So I'm actually just making a bunch of changes so that the wording is better throughout my service pages and what have you. The other big thing is that if you're not on my newsletter, my mailing list, my newsletter family, part of my newsletter family, I sent out an email last Friday, it would have been Friday, about SEO school. So SEO school, I'm looking at my calendar. My mic always goes in and out when I turn my head to look at it. On September 30th, I'm opening up enrollment for SEO school to the waitlist. So if you're not on the waitlist for SEO school, make sure you join that. Over the next month, you're going to get SEO tips weekly. So if you're not on my mailing, my newsletter family, P.S. I'm trying to find like a fun name for that. I also don't care about the name, but it would be nice to be like my newsletter fam, but have it be a cool name. But anyway, so if you want to join that, make sure you join that. But then if you want to join SEO school, I'll put a link here as well. Make sure you're on the waitlist for SEO school, because then you can get the SEO tips as well as a sweet discount on SEO school. So that's like the big announcement. I will say the other big thing for me, I have, I believe three days left for Do It in a Days. I'm going to put a link to my Do It in a Day website page in the show notes as well, because I did update that page and it's more clear on what you can use that VIP day for and what that looks like. So you can take a peek at that if you're curious. Other than that, nothing really. Oh, I should actually say, continuing with the YouTube journey, I'll put a link to my YouTube channel as well. I'm going for weekly. So my goal is to do a video a week. I'm seeing the one problem that I talked about on the podcast when I talked about YouTube was that I was nervous that people were going to comment on my videos with wanting more tutorials, meaning like someone who's not familiar with me, they find my video, they comment on it, and they're like, this helped me so much. Can you also show me how to do X, Y, or this worked for me, but this other thing isn't working. And it happened already. And I'm like, that's not what the purpose of this video is. So I'm going to try to create videos around the questions that people ask on the videos, because I feel like that's like obviously low hanging fruit, but just leaning into teaching how I like to teach. So short and sweet, and also video. Speaking of short and sweet, if you're on my newsletter fam, insert cool newsletter name here, I'm also starting to send out what I call monthly minutes, and they're just simply a minute long read about something. So it's going to be tech tips, website tips, SEO, copywriting, etc. Like I plan to send that out monthly at least, but maybe twice. So there is no set time as far as like how many times I'm going to send that, in addition to my monthly newsletter. So obviously I'm not going to try to, bombard your inbox, multiple times in the same week, but maybe it happens. So just if you have not joined that, you can join my newsletter. I'll once again put the link in the show notes. All right. I think that's it. I'm just, as always, running through my list in my head. I feel like that's all the things that I wanted to make sure I chatted about here. And then what we can do is we'll just jump right into the episode. So I want to say it was this past Friday, I posted a Instagram post about transaction fees, and I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, at least from all of the considerations that I've talked about as far as carts and what have you. But when it comes to transaction fees, and transaction fees just means a fee that's charged to you, right? When you have someone use your payment processor, whatever you choose, and you pay a fee on that. So for instance, whether you use Stripe, Square, PayPal, Squarespace, Kajabi has their own payments as well. If you use that payment processor, if you charge $10 for a product, typically 2.7 to 3.5% ish will be taken out before you see the money. So essentially what you get paid out is not the cost of the product. So if the product is $10 minus the whatever percentage transaction fee it is, you get paid that amount. So let's just call it the transaction fee ends up becoming $2. You get paid $8 at the end of the day. So then if you obviously take out taxes and whatever else, you take out however much you take out, and then your end cost is X, Y, and Z, right? So the reason I want to discuss this is because one of the easiest, or one of the places that I see people really kind of just, I don't know, get up in arms about it is with their online booking like software, like Jane app, for their clinic. So people will avoid using the integrated payment processor, such as Jane Payments, because they want to avoid fees, or that means to take cash and check, or they want to try to like work their way around to use a different payment processor. So you're talking to someone who used a different platform before, Jane, who did the whole, I'm not going to use the integrated payment processor because your fees are too high thing. I did it, and it was a nightmare. So the reason I talk about this is because I think it's really important to understand that convenience is what you're paying for. And realistically, when you think about it, you're not paying out so much. Like, it's not a big deal. It's not going to make or break you as far as what you're paying in fees when it compares to the convenience that you're providing. So for instance, typically what happens with a payment processor, especially something with Jane Payments, it allows patients to store their credit cards in your system. So for instance, someone buys a session, they come back for their second session, their credit card is stored in your system. You can just charge their card and it's done. Right? So that's a huge convenience factor. You don't need to type in their card each time. They don't need to put it in the reader. If you have one, it's not a pain in the ass. Like, it makes it super easy. The other thing too is when you're doing your sales page, checkout, cart, if you will, and then follow-up email for a purchase, ideally we're using an integrated payment system, because then you're not like sending someone to a PayPal cart to check out. I think that's like I get like everything works and we all start with our process in the beginning. And like, if that's how you're going to start out, fine. But I will also say there's something to be said for, one, ease of transaction, and two, the pathway that people have to take and what platforms they're using as far as like, I don't want to use the word professional. It's more or less just like, this is a business, right? So being able to send someone to a cart without it being like some weird platform is amazing. Now, that's not me saying you can't use something like Stripe or PayPal or whatever. What I'm saying is that it's nice to use the integrated systems within a platform because it can provide the user a great experience. Now, for something like Squarespace, I sell my Squarespace templates on Squarespace, but my payment provider is Apple and Stripe. So I pay fees based on whatever is set between the agreement of Squarespace it's just Stripe. It's just Stripe and me. That agreement that they have set out, which I believe is 2.79%, I believe, unless it has gone up. So every transaction I pay 2.79% of whatever people are paying to the provider. Same thing for Acuity scheduling. So for Acuity scheduling, if someone books a call with me, it's X amount of dollars. I don't see 2.7% of that because I use Stripe for my payment processor. The long and the short here, and what I want to make sure you take away is, one, we have to think about payment processing software processing fees as a good thing. They're there because we're using someone else as a provider to essentially protect people's credit cards. And it provides a security and it provides all of the things that we don't have to worry about, right? So it's a huge convenience thing on our end. Like, I'm not trying to make my own cart. That sounds terrible. The other thing is it's a huge convenience. So it's a convenience for our in-person and our online consumers to be able to pay online. Now, I don't see it too much, but people will oftentimes like go back and forth between, I'm only going to take check or I'm only going to take cash when they have an online business, which does not make sense. I have not had too many people ever say that they're going to do that. But what I do have people do is like choose to not use the integrated software, or they choose to use something like, I don't know, Venmo, which is, I don't want to like, it's fine. Just understand. I mean, I say it's fine. I don't love it. I think it's, you can do better. And like the Stripe fees are not terrible. Just do that. But the thing is like you can start somewhere and then go somewhere else once you get started. So I will also say, if you're doing that currently, just try to find a solution that is, it fits your business better. So the long and the short here with the payment processing fees, the last part here. So we have, one, it's convenience. Two, it definitely will, help people store cards and what have you. And then 3, we have to think of it as a write-off. Like these fees can be written off on our taxes, at least if you're in the US. I can't speak to Canada. I don't know how your taxes work, or anywhere else. But in the US, your transaction fees can be written off as a business expense. So it's not like you're paying these fees and then not seeing anything from it. It can be written off. So also a huge bang for your buck. The other thing too is that you can't get rid of them, right? Like we can't get rid of them. They're there for a reason. And it's so that we can, like I said the first time here, is like, it's so you can use that software and people can use their credit cards without fearing that it's going to get stolen. The last thing that I want to say is that I would strongly advise you to just embed these costs in your prices. So if you know that you're going to have to pay 2% out in fees, whatever that percentage is based on your payment processor, if you know you're going to have to pay that out in fees, just raise your price so that it includes that amount in there and you're still getting what your bottom line is. So if you know that you need to make $100 at the end of the day, add on what you're going to be paying in taxes and add on your fee, and then suddenly your cost is actually, $125, whatever that may be, right? So just add that into your cost. I will say I've seen a lot of in-person businesses just say they get like a cash pay discount, meaning if you bring a check or you pay in cash, you get a discount for doing that because they don't have to pay the fees. But honestly, like just embed it in your cost and call it a day. It just makes everything easier. And also no one likes to see a fee. And honestly, it just doesn't feel good when someone gets, like, the service cost is a service cost, regardless of whether you pay in cash or you pay in card. It doesn't matter. For online businesses, obviously, it just makes sense to, embrace the online transaction fees regardless, because you have an online business. It's one of those things where you just accept the fact that this is a part of being a business owner, and it is what it is. It's a simple business expense. It's just welcome to entrepreneurship. And same thing for in-person business. Like, just consider it as a convenience factor, especially if you're using Jane app, like to use Jane payments. It does make the most sense and it's the most convenient. And just embrace the fact that the payment provider cost that is there is for your patient's credit card safety, if you will. And also to understand that if you're thinking, well, that fee is higher than what I can get through someone else. Okay, great. But by using that other provider, is it going to then decrease the convenience for yourself and for your patients in order to get paid? Like, I am just thinking about Jane app, for instance. You can email someone an unpaid invoice with a button to pay on it. You can't do that if you have a different payment processor. So for me, I find that hugely problematic. I would rather be able to send someone an invoice, let them pay via the invoice, and not have to rely on them using this other payment processor that I've decided is better, right? I understand that, the fees can add up, especially if you have a high volume clinic. I get it, but the convenience factor is huge for both us and our patients. And for what it's worth, if you really think about the money that you save by using this other provider, if they have like a percentage difference, that percentage difference is probably just going to, come out in the wash when you have that increased convenience factor. So to wrap it up and not be on my soapbox any longer, just accept that payment processing fees are a cost of doing business. If you are in the US, you can write them off. So it's a huge factor as far as like, it doesn't go against you for your taxes, and it's worth it in order to provide that patient convenience and to just embed it in your costs. And if you're feeling salty about, the amount that you're essentially giving away, quote unquote, to the payment processor, then just raise your prices by an amount that makes you feel less salty. It's really not that big of a deal. Just embed it in the cost. You don't have to do a cash pay discount or anything of the sort. Just raise your prices. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I knew that I hadn't really talked about this in the podcast, and I'm pretty passionate about it because I see it, and I see it in a lot of Facebook groups about people trying to avoid software and not use embedded payments like Jane payments because they don't want to pay the fees. And it's just, for me, I'm like, the convenience factor is so worth it. And believe me when I say I went that route. I tried to use a different payment processor. It was super inconvenient, switched over to that EMR's payment processor, then eventually went to Jane and didn't even think twice about Jane payments because it was be so convenient and so easy. So yes, is this like a promotion for Jane? Of course it is. I love them. But also for anyone else using online payment processing software, it's also for you. So that's all I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you next time.